Welcome to FPL Differential XI, a series where we pick a team of 11 lowly owned players who we predict to score the most points for the upcoming game week, to assist you in gaining substantial rank over other fantasy managers. There's just 3 rules. The squad must be worth no more than 82.5 million, each player must be owned by a maximum of 10% of total players in the game, and we're only allowed to pick a maximum of 3 players from a single team. A silhouette of each player we've selected is already on the pitch, so feel free to play along by seeing how many of the 11 you can correctly guess. First up in goal, I've gone for Martinez for Aston Villa's home matchup with Bournemouth. Bournemouth pulled off an impressive 1-0 win last week against Liverpool, and I expect them to sit in deep again and try to hit Villa on the counter-attack. It's a small game week this week, with not many favourable teams playing, but I think this is one of the standout fixtures for a home win. Villa have looked defensively more solid in their last 3 matches, conceding just a single goal, while Bournemouth have struggled to come by goals this season, scoring on average just under a single goal a game. Ben Chilwell is the first player to make the back 3 this week for his game at home to Everton. With multiple injuries across the Chelsea back line, Chilwell looks likely to start in his favoured left wing-back position, and we know the damage he's capable of causing playing there. He's already picked up a goal and an assist in his last 2 matches, and I think he's got a good chance of adding to his attacking returns this weekend. Although Everton have looked more impressive since Sean Dyche was appointed as manager around a month ago, they still haven't won away from home in the Premier League since Gameweek 9. Joining Chilwell is Tottenham's right-back Pedro Porro for his away match versus Southampton. Although Spurs' form has been inconsistent lately, they're coming up against a Southampton side that struggle to score goals, having netted just 3 times in their last 7 Premier League games. Pedro Porro has now started back-to-back matches in the league, and with Emerson failing to make the squad last week, there's a good chance he makes the starting 11 versus the Saints. We've seen him take a couple of free kicks already, and he also provided the assist for Harry Kane's headed goal against Forest. So he could be a great differential, especially for those who are free hitting. Finally in the back 3, I've doubled up on Aston Villa's defence and gone with Matty Cash for his home encounter with Bournemouth. Having returned from injury, Cash has now started in all of Villa's last 4 matches, and in that time he's kept 2 clean sheets and returned 2 assists. There's definitely a question of who to go for from Villa's back line. Konsa and Mings seem the safer picks, but Cash and Alex Moreno have the upside of attacking threats. I've gone for Cash because he's done well since he rejoined the starting 11, and Ashley Young is 37 years old, so I wouldn't expect him to regularly start matches. To begin with in midfield, it's Matthias Jensen for Brentford's home match versus Leicester. Jensen has offered unbelievable value for money in FPL, costing just 4.8 million, and already he's got 4 goals and 5 assists for the season. The only reason he's still very lowly owned among fantasy managers is most likely because he takes up one of the valuable midfield spots. But he could become an option this week, especially for those planning on playing their free hit chip, because there aren't too many teams to pick from. Leicester have lost their last 4 Premier League matches, and since the World Cup, they've been leaky in the defensive department. Next up, I've gone for Son for Tottenham's away trip to Southampton. Although Spurs have had inconsistent form lately, you'd have to fancy them to get something from this game. Son, Kane and Richarlison looked very good up front last week against Forest, and I'd expect Conte to start the same 3 against the Saints, especially now that Spurs are only playing for a top 4 spot in the Premier League. Son has now scored 2 goals in his last 4 matches, and there are signs that he might be returning to being a viable fantasy asset. I definitely wouldn't overlook him, especially on a Gameweek 28 free hit. Leandro Trossard was arguably the standout player in Gameweek 27, picking up 3 assists and returning 15 FPL points against Fulham. For now at least, it seems like Trossard is favoured over Nketiah, and with Jesus still not fit enough to start a game, it looks like Trossard will continue to start in that number 9 role, playing out of position in one of the most prolific attacking sides in the division. Arsenal's opponents this week, Crystal Palace, have not won in the league since all the way back in Gameweek 18, so you'd expect the Gunners to be big favourites for a result in this one. Joining Trossard, I've decided on Emiliano Buendia for Aston Villa's home match against Bournemouth. Buendia has scored 4 goals this season in the Premier League with inconsistent minutes in the Villa side. However, since Gameweek 13, Buendia has started every match other than one, playing a creative role behind the striker. Although Bournemouth picked up an impressive 1-0 victory over Liverpool last weekend, they have conceded a fair few goals recently, and if Villa were to score this week, I would expect Buendia to be involved, especially as he's likely to be on most of their set pieces with Coutinho ruled out through injury. To begin with up front this week, I've gone for Kai Havertz against Everton. It was a tough call whether to include João Felix or Havertz in the differential 11, but I've opted for the latter purely based on the fact he's on penalties and seems fairly nailed to start under Potter, having started 11 of his last 12 Premier League matches and playing close to 90 minutes per match. Although Everton seem to have improved under Sean Dyche, they have shown signs of defensive fragilities, conceding 8 times in their last 4 games, and I just fancy Chelsea to get a result this game, as they have looked more threatening lately. Having complained earlier in the week for not being given enough game time this season, Richarlison returned to the Tottenham starting 11 in style last week, picking up 2 assists and also having a goal marginally ruled out by VAR. Although he's yet to score this season in the Premier League, he's recorded 5 assists in limited minutes, and I think it's only a matter of time before he gets on the score sheet. Spurs' opponent this week, Southampton, are a team that are known for leaving a lot of space in behind the back line, so including a player like Richarlison could be the perfect option to exploit that. Patrick Bamford is the last player to make the team this week for his away fixture against Wolves. Injury has plagued Bamford for the majority of the 22-23 season, but over the last month or so, he's managed to put a more consistent run of minutes together, and last week he scored a spectacular strike against Brighton, returning 8 FPL points in the process. With a limited number of fixtures to choose from this game week, I quite like the thought of going for a Leeds attacker, as they're able to generate chances against practically any opponent, and Bamford of course has the added bonus of penalties. Just a quick reminder to let you know that this could be your channel appearing on the series. If you want to be in with a chance of winning a shout out on the channel, correctly predict the points total of this week's differential 11. Info will be down below in the pinned comment. Thanks for joining us on this week's video. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to avoid missing the next one, and I wish you all massive green arrows for the upcoming game week.